All right, Todd Brown, man, thank you for coming on here. I'm pumped. I'm psyched. Thank you so much, man.
Well, it's my pleasure, man. I'm excited to be with you. I know you're doing some great work, man, and so this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So the way this came about, or first, let me give the topic here. We're going to talk about the one metric that can get you mass traffic, crazy traffic. So this has been coming up in a lot of conversations I'm having with clients and prospective clients, and this is a huge deal. And I know that this is something that I feel like you are the best at explaining. So yeah, man, we're just gonna walk through this. I'm gonna ask you some questions. But how would you describe it? This is like the most important method or metric for cold traffic.
Well, I think it really, to even take a step back for 1 second, I think that it's important for everybody to understand that building a business, growing a business with effective marketing involves psychology, communication, and arithmetic, math. Certainly direct response marketing, right? We're not talking about brand institutional advertising, but when it comes to to direct response marketing, when it comes to small business owners and operators, entrepreneurs, mom and pops, it comes down to psychology, communication, and arithmetic. Most of the time when it comes to marketing trainings and marketing discussions, the first two are being addressed, psychology and communication. Psychology being what is it that your prospect wants and what are they feeling and what are their desires and what's the promise that you want to make, right? Like what is the psychology of your audience? And then we've got communication, and communication is everything that you say and present and do and show to tap into that marketplace psychology to show them that you've got the perfect solution for their needs. But the part of the equation, the part of the whole thing that most people don't really fully grasp is that this is all about arithmetic, and all the decisions that you make when it comes to getting traffic, scaling your traffic, acquiring more customers, really growing your business. It has to stem from the arithmetic, the math, some simple metrics. And I know today we're going to be talking about one of those metrics, which is arguably the most important, most valuable metric. But, the beauty is that this game is objective. It's not subjective, meaning that when a campaign isn't working or isn't producing or an entrepreneur is unable to scale their business, it's not a matter of sitting back and scratching their head and wondering from a subjective assumption, guesswork perspective how to fix it. It really is objective. The answers, the solutions, the fixes are all in the numbers. And today I know we're going to be talking about that chief number.
Yeah. Let's get into that. So let's talk about the max CPA. So what CPA is, why understanding your max CPA is so important. I mean, it's really the cornerstone to all of this.
Yeah, so CPA stands for cost per acquisition. And really what we're talking about in this context is what does it cost you to acquire a single new customer? What most entrepreneurs and marketers don't realize is that the single most expensive activity in any business is customer acquisition. And the simple way to really just understand what we're talking about when we say CPA or cost per acquisition or the cost to acquire a customer is, if you invest $1,000 in a marketing campaign, in generating traffic, in Facebook ads, in direct mail, in a small space ad, whatever it may be, and let's say for argument's sake to keep things real simple, you acquire 10 customers. So you invested $1,000 into traffic, into advertising, and you generated 10 new customers. That means that you have a cost per acquisition of $100. That means it cost you $100 to acquire a single new customer. Well, as you've heard me explain before, there are three different ways, three different kind of categories or levels that every entrepreneur operates when it comes to deciding on their cost per acquisition, deciding what it is that they can afford to spend to acquire a customer. You want to get into those three levels?
Before you even get into that, you said invest in traffic, invest in paid traffic. Why don't you say just buy paid traffic? I noticed you chose your word carefully, so maybe that's before we even get into the three levels. Maybe touch on the mindset, like the mindset that you have when you invest in traffic versus other mindsets that you could have.
So and it's a great point, and you're absolutely right. I use that word invest specifically and strategically because when done correctly, like we're going to talk about a little bit on here, traffic isn't a cost. It's not a cost like your telephone bill or your cable bill or your electric bill. It's an investment, meaning that in business, a customer is your most valuable asset. Right. And so when we're generating new customers, when we're acquiring customers, what we're really doing, and the mindset that I have and operate with and teach to clients that is we are investors. We're investing in the acquisition of assets. Those assets are customers, and those assets have a value today and then have a future value. Similar to the way an equity investor, a stock investor, I think, and operate like an investor. And we're investing in the acquisition of assets. Those assets happen to be customers. And just like any other asset, that asset has a value today, and that asset has a future value. Similar to the way an equity investor, a stock investor that is kind of buy and hold, they're buying something today for a certain value, right? They're spending $50 per share, and they're in that area, the buy and hold investor is hoping that goes from $50 a share to $100 a share in the future. The difference is that with us, we don't have to guess at what the future value is. That's what we have metrics for. So we get to invest a certain amount today, knowing that there's a value today. That value today is what does the customer spend today when they become a customer for the first time. And then future value is based on what it is that we know the average customer spends with us over the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, et cetera. And so it's an investment. It's not a cost. What you pay, what you invest, what you spend to acquire a customer is going to pay you back dividends in the future, because customers, if you run your business the right way and you've got a back end is all the marketing, all the offers that you present to existing customers. If you do it correctly, there's a greater value on the back. So there's a value on the front end. That means that's the marketing that we do with prospects designed to turn them into new customers, right? The front end is the marketing that's responsible for that first transaction for a new customer. And then the back end is all the marketing that we do with existing customers that's designed to deliver more value to them and ultimately extract more profit for us. And so that's the way that we operate, which is really a perfect segue to the three different levels. So, the mom and the pop, the owner of a small business, they don't think like that. They don't think front end, back end. To the typical mom and pop business owner, they think transactionally, meaning that they think they operate with this mindset of, I want to generate profit on every sale, whether it's the first sale that I make with a brand new customer or the 10th sale that I make with an existing customer. They want a certain profit. They want a certain margin. They might operate at, let's say, 50% margin. So if they're selling a product for $250, that means the mom and pop are only willing to spend $125 to get a new customer. If they spend $125 and sell something for $250, they have a margin of $125. They generate a profit there. Then that's the first level, right? And that's the typical mom and pop. But then we've got the second level. And the second level is where most direct response entrepreneurs, marketers operate. And the second level is break even. And that means that the second level recognizes that there is a different objective and a different purpose of front-end marketing compared to back-end marketing. Front-end marketing, all the marketing that we do with prospects, is designed to acquire the maximum number of new customers. It's not a tool to generate profit. It's a tool to acquire maximum new customers. And so at that level, the entrepreneur, they're simply striving to break even on what it is that they invest or spend to get a customer. In the same example, if they were still selling that $250 product, at this level, that entrepreneur is willing to spend $250 to get a new customer. You compare that to the first level entrepreneur who's only willing to spend $125. This entrepreneur at the second level is willing to spend $250, double the amount. That means they pay or invest $250 to get a new customer that spends $250, meaning that they generate zero profit on the front end. But
yeah, and just to stop you right there, let's think about the difference there competitively. So level 2 versus level 1, I mean, they're spending double to acquire the customer. So in terms of paid traffic, as a media buyer, I see this like, people may get on one channel like Facebook and they may found some narrow targets and they're very stressed about, getting those really low CPAs because they only have so much room to play. Whereas, getting into the level 2 investor, you're opening up to so many more channels and you definitely want to diversify your traffic and be able to scale it. And I think at that point, as a media buyer, the mentality is totally different too, because instead of just spending all my time and energy trying to pull ninja tricks, looking for, the lowest CPA possible and, stressing out if it, starts to creep up a little bit, it really opens the floodgates open.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's look at this. So if the thing to really understand, right, is so if you look at that and you just said, well, why would I ever do that? Why would I spend $250 to acquire a customer for $250 and get zero profit, right? Well, the reality is this, that at that level, and we could even just stay at that second level and really talk about that, because you could do tremendous things if you operate at that second level. Well, if I'm willing to spend double what you are to acquire a single new customer, you're only willing to spend 125, you're at level 1, I'm willing to spend double what you are, I'm willing to spend a full 250, I'm going to be able to acquire more customers than you because I'm willing to spend, right, a lot more than you are to get a single customer. There are channels I could use, there are things that I can do, there are costs per click that I can spend that you can't because I'm willing to spend a full 250 to get a single customer. You're only willing to spend 125. So let's say for argument's sake that I spend 250 and I'm able to acquire 10 new customers. So I spend 250 to acquire a single new customer. I acquire 10 instead of the 5, right? You let's say you spend $125 to acquire a customer. You're able to acquire 5 customers, right? 5 customers at $125 each means you spent $625, right? $625. If you're selling a product for $250, it really means that you generated $1,250, something like that, $1,250, meaning that you have a profit of $625. So level 1, right, you spend only $125, you maintain your margin, you're only able to acquire 5 customers, and you generate a profit of $625. Me, I'm at level 2, I spend $250 to acquire a customer, but I'm able to acquire double the amount of customers that you are. So I get 10. But remember, I'm willing to invest $250 to acquire a customer. So now I invest $2,500 to get those 10 customers. Remember, you only invested $625, but you only got 5 customers. I got 10 and spent $2,500. But I also sold 10 customers at $250 each, meaning I'm left with zero profit. You got 5 customers at $625 profit. I got 10 customers at zero profit. On the surface, it looks like you're rocking the house and you're kicking my butt, but that's because we're only looking at the front end. Now let's say in both businesses, your case and my case, both of our businesses, our average customer over the following year spends $1,500 with us. $1,500 with us each. So, right, you got 5 customers, they each spend $1,500, right? So that means that your back end for you, because you acquired 5 customers, produces another $7,500, right? 5 times $1,500 each, $7,500. So you got another $7,500. Plus, you had $625 of profit from the front end, right? From those 5 customers. And so that's, what is that? So $7,500, that's $8,125. So you walk away, right, with $8,125. Now let's look at my business. Remember, I spent $2,500 to get 10 customers. I brought in $2,500. I had zero profit on the front. But I had 10 customers that now go into the back end. And each of those 10 spend $1,500 with me, right? That means I generated $15,000. Right? I had zero on the front, but I spent $15,000. You walked away with $8,125. I walked away with $15,000. That's over a 180% increase in profit to me, even though I spent double what you did to get a single customer, even though I had zero profit on the front end. But this business is back end driven. The best businesses understand that the profit comes from the back end. And so because I acquired 10 customers and you acquired 5, even though you generated profit on the front and I didn't, all the money is on the back end. I generated 180+% more profit than you did. And so see how, because of that, that's why I'm willing to think like an investor. That's why I'm willing to invest like an investor. That's why I'm willing to invest $250 just to get a customer that spends $250, because I know the money, the future value is $1,500 each.
Yeah,
and so,
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get into level 3, but just a kind of a quick thing to sprinkle in there is, you're making more profit, but some other unseen benefits is, what if ad costs, you start seeing them creep up? A lot of times that pushes, if someone's stuck in the level 1 mentality, they're focused on that lower CPA, that could, really derail their business, whereas you've got a much larger spread, so you've got a lot of padding to deal with. You're not so concerned with ad cost rising, really. I mean, it almost serves you to sort of wipe out some of your competitors, and they don't realize it's happening.
That's my game, my goal, and this is very common in the world of direct response, so it's nothing that I pioneered, but the aim is to be able to spend the most amount of money, right? Like we just said, right? If you are only able to spend $125 because you need to maintain that margin, you're thinking transactionally. Every time I sell a $250 product, I need to generate $125 of profit. You're thinking transactionally. I'm not. I'm thinking like an investor, and I'm thinking about the future value of these customers. And so because of that, right, in your case, you have a CPA of 125, right? And in your case, if you're selling a $250 product, because you want to maintain a 50% margin, your maximum CPA, the maximum amount of money that you are willing to spend to acquire a customer, is 125. For me, my max CPA, let's say at level 2, is $250. If I'm selling a $250 product, I'm willing to spend $250 because I know that I break even, meaning I'm acquiring customers for free. I'm acquiring customers that I know have a future value of $1,500 each, and I'm acquiring them for free today. I'm spending $250 and I'm getting $250 back, plus I'm getting the asset, the customer that's going to go on to spend $1,500. I'll do that all day, every day. It's kind of like saying this. It's kind of like if we said to one of your clients, one of your customers, one of your tribe members, if we said, hey, today you can give me $10 and I'll give you $10 back. And then in 30 days, I'll give you another $10. How many of you would do that? Well, everybody's hand should go up because your bank account is no less today. You give me 10. 2 seconds later or an hour later or 3 hours later, I give you back 10. You're at break even. Your account is no less than it was the day before. But now in 30 days from now, I'm going to give you another 10. You doubled your money. Not today you didn't double your money, but in 30 days you doubled your money. And that's thinking like an investor. And that's what it means for maximum cost per acquisition. Now, the third level is the most advanced level. It's where the biggest, fastest growing direct response companies operate. And the third level is what's really referred to as going negative. That means that you're willing to spend more to acquire a customer today than what that customer actually spends with you today. So let's look at this. Let's say hypothetically, let's take the same example, right? But now let's say that I'm willing to spend $500 to get a new customer. I'm still selling the same $250 product, right? I'm still selling that same $250 product, but I'm willing to spend $500. And let's say worst case scenario, I am still only able to acquire 10 new customers, right? That's it. Still, even though I'm willing to spend double what I was before and 4 times what you're willing to spend. Mm-hmm. But let's say I only acquire 10 new customers. That means 10 new customers at a CPA, a cost per acquisition of $500 each, means I just spent or invested $5,000 to get 10 new customers. Those 10 new customers still spent the $250 each. That's $2,500. So $2,500, so $5,000 in expenses minus $2,500 in sales tells me I'm negative $2,500. That means $2,500 went out of my bank account in order to get those 10 new customers. Now, on the surface, you would think, well, who in the world would do that? Why the heck would you do that? Well, remember, I have $15,000 that comes in on the back end for those 10 customers. Those 10 customers spend $15,000. So in this case, even though I was willing to go up to 500 max CPA, I generate 15,000 on the back. I pay back that 2,500 on the front, and now I'm left with $12,500 in profit. So even though I was willing to spend 500 to get a customer that only spends 250, I still have more profit than you in this example on the back end. You only had $8,125 in profit. I had over $12,000, $500 in profit. I'm still ahead of the game. The difference here is that you have to know two things. You have to be on top of two things. Number one, you have to have cash flow. You have to have the cash to be able to do this, to be able to operate at the third level. You have to be a mature business that's got the cash, because remember, every day that I get 10 new customers, $2,500 comes out of my bank account. I get 10 new the next day, $2,500 goes out of my bank account. And it only gets paid back as that 1,500 comes in, as they spend, $250 the next month, $250 the month after that, $250 the month after that, right? And so on. Maybe out of that 1,500 on the back end, maybe the first 250 of that comes in 30 days later, right? Maybe out of that 1,500, the average customer spends $250 a month, for 6 months, and that's how I get to the 1,500. Well, so that means that every time I get 10 new customers, I'm floating 2,500, and then 30 days later it comes back, right? 30 days later it comes back. So you have to have the cash to be able to do that. If not, you could have a profitable business where, you could have a profit, but you could go out of business because you run out of cash. And so you spend your money before you have a chance to recoup that money. The second thing that you need to know is you need to know the lifetime value of a customer. You need to know what it is that they're worth and when that money comes in. Does that 1,500 come in starting, 30 days later, starting 60 days later, starting 80 days later, starting, 200 days later? When does it come in? You need to know that, because at level 3, you're investing, but you're managing cash flow. When does the cash goes out immediately? When does it start to come back? And that's really the thing to understand, that I'm always looking for, in that example, right? Level 1, we had a max CPA of 125, right? Level 2, right? And that's so that in that example, because you wanted to generate profit. So you only acquired 5 customers and you made 625 on the front, you made 7,500 on the back, you made a total of 8,125. Right? At the second level, my max CPA was 250. I was willing to break even. I was willing to invest what it is that a customer was worth today. And so I was able to get, 10 new customers and blah, blah, blah. But if I was in a real example, if I was willing to spend 500 instead of 250, I would get more than just 10 new customers. Right? So I would end up with much more profit. Maybe I could get 15 customers. And so I'd still lose money on the front, because I'd still go negative on the front for those 15, but I'd make it up when those 15 spend $1,500 each, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the game.
When we talked about at level 2 how much wider that lane opens up, it's almost growing, by multiples, because some of the biggest dogs in direct response, people wonder, how are they spending, $1 million a day? How are they going out to networks like Taboola and stuff like that, where it's, there are other factors involved, which you cover in your E5 Camp Masterclass. This is one piece of that's, very important, but it, from a media buying, we won't get in the weeds on that. It's just, you can go out to networks that other people can't really fathom getting on, with cold traffic. So it's gets to the point where it's just ridiculous amounts of traffic, the millions and millions spent. But we won't even go that far. We'll keep the examples more realistic.
Here's the thing to recognize, right? That, look, that if for an entrepreneur, for a business owner that wants to generate profit on the front, they're going to have very little media buying opportunities, because the cost of media today, they would have to have a wickedly dialed front end campaign to be able to generate a profit on the front. The truth is that today, as we're recording this, I don't know if I know any 8-figure, 7-figure, even 6-figure a year entrepreneurs that are generating profit on the front. They're far and few between. It's a rare gem of a marketing campaign to allow you to do that, because the cost of media is just going up and up and up. And as it always will when supply and demand, right? Like demand for it just goes up. And so the reality is this, that the more you're willing to invest to get a customer, the higher your max CPA is, your max allowable cost per acquisition, the more media buying opportunities you have, regardless of what your budget is. Remember, like, we didn't talk about is my media buying budget, $100,000 a day? Is it $10,000 a day? Is it $1,000 a day? Is it $500 a day? We're talking about what we're willing to spend or invest to acquire a single customer, right? And so the more that you're willing to invest, the higher your maximum allowable cost per acquisition is, the bigger the opportunities you have when buying media. And what happens is it becomes exponential, right? Meaning that, like, if we were willing to spend $500 to acquire a new customer that's only worth $250 to us, there's virtually no traffic generation, no media buying platform we wouldn't be able to use, right? We'd be able to go hog wild and use all of them, and the most expensive ones down, right? Meaning that we'd be able to use channels, generate traffic, tap into platforms that competitors wouldn't be able to use. And so they're going to grow much slower, because, right, they're acquiring less customers, we're acquiring a lot more. And knowing that the back end is the business, if you're only acquiring 5 customers and I'm acquiring 15, my business is going to grow much, 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 much quicker than yours and be much, much, much more profitable in future months. You're robbing yourself a future profit for today's profit, and I'm feeding it like an investor. And in a year from now, I'm going to have a lot more customers than, I'm going to have 3 times, let's say, if we going from 125 to 500 than you are, meaning I'm going to have a much more profitable business, because more of my money is going to be coming in from the back end, which is profit. More of your revenue is going to be coming in from the front. You're going to be acquiring less customers. It's a completely different game.
So that's acquisition aggression, and really that comes down to in day-to-day life of talking to entrepreneurs. It's a lot of times it's just a mindset tweak of, because I've talked to entrepreneurs that they have a great front-end product, great copy. It's starting to convert to cold traffic. They have back-end products, but they're, they just haven't really had this mindset shift that they're willing to step up from level 1 to level 2. And at the same time, they're struggling with traffic. If one traffic channel gets shut down, they're out of business. So that is acquisition aggression, just down to a mindset and deciding what are you going to do, how are you going to model your business, right? And one other lever I want to touch on is raising your CPA in another way. And I was actually in a meeting yesterday with a client in the financial industry. He's actually an E5 client, bought it for his whole staff. They're like a $40 million company in the Agora space, and they're constantly running tests on their upsells. And our CPA for the product, and this is the main growth driver for the company, it's a $200 CPA, and it is the one funnel for the last 2 years that they've been running to grow their company. And this is a $40 million company, and this is just sending traffic to this one hardworking front-end funnel. So what he told us in the meeting yesterday is that some of the tests are going well, and he said, guys, your CPA may now be $230 instead of $200. And we were like, yeah, because that's going to make it even easier to go out to traffic. Yep. So you've got your acquisition aggression plus, running the test to, raise your CPA another way. So I just wanted to kind of throw in that other lever there, because, from multiple angles, whether it's acquisition aggression or, just, testing your upsells and stuff like that, we're always looking to push that CPA up. And, from a media buyer standpoint, you can, talk to any of the best media buyers out there, and, they're going to ask you about your CPA and they're going to tell you, yes or no based on that. Like even some of the legends like Justin Brook, who's also a mentor of mine, as are you. But, he turns away clients when the CPA is too low because, with everything he knows and all of his experience over the years, he knows he can't win for that client.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it, right? Like you think about it, like you said so many extremely wise things there, just about the last thing that you said. That's absolutely right. If you go into a competitive space, let's say, the financial newsletter world, and let's say you have a maximum you go to, a media buyer, you, Justin, who, anybody, and you say, hey, my maximum allowable CPA is $20. They're going to say, you can't compete in this game. You can't do it. You're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to make it work with the cost of media today, right? With what your front end campaign would need to convert at, like, you're not going to be able to do it. It's kind of like saying, it's like looking at a stock that's selling for $300 and saying, I want to go out and acquire that stock, but I can only afford to spend $30 a share to get that stock. There is no investing trick under the sun that's going to get you those shares at that inexpensive price because of the cost to acquire that share. But so, like you said, going back to, you said there's acquisition aggression and what level you operate at. And then there is this mindset of consistently working on increasing what is your maximum allowable CPA. And what I would say is it's the best of the best, combine the two. And what I mean by that is that, for me, nobody ever should be operating at level 1. If you've got a legitimate direct response driven business, you've got a front end, you've got back end products, services, sales, and whatnot, there's no reason to operate at a level 1. You're robbing yourself of future profits for much smaller profits today. Remember, at level 2, at break even, you're acquiring customers for free. Your bank account is not shrinking. You're investing $2,000 and getting $2,000 back. You're investing $5,000 and getting $5,000 back. You're not losing. Your bank account is the same as it was the day before, 2 days before, 3 days before. The difference is that you now have valuable assets, customers that are going to be worth more and more to you over the future. And even at that level, even at level 2, there are ways to, like you said, increase your maximum allowable acquisition cost, to increase your conversions on your upsell or add-on offers, to add in another upsell or add-on offer, to increase the price on your upsell or add-on offer, to increase your price on your main product, to add in a bump offer on the order form, to use a second chance offer sequence to come back and resell the folks that didn't take advantage of one or more of your upsells. All of these things help to increase your maximum allowable cost per acquisition. When you move to level 3, you actually have a new lever that you can pull. So you still have everything that I just said. You can increase, right, all of those things, but you can also increase the amount of money that the average customer spends with you and how quickly they spend it with you, right? So when we're at level 2, we're still just looking at the front end. And our goal is, let's say, if we're only able right now to spend $50 to acquire a new customer, right? Or let's say $250. Let's go back to that example. We're only willing to spend $250 because every new customer is worth $250. Well, if we add in an upsell, if we add in a bump offer, if we add in, right, these different elements, we increase the price on one of the upsells. Now maybe we go from $250 to $275. That means that now we're able to spend $275 to get a new customer instead of the $250. We're still at break even. We're still not generating any profit on the front, but we're able to spend more to acquire more customers. On level 3, we now take into consideration the front end, and we're still going to do all those things. We're still going to go from 250 to 275, but we're also going to look to increase the lifetime value, what that customer is worth going forward, and how quickly we collect on that money. Because at level 3, what you're using to determine how much your maximum allowable acquisition cost is, how much you can afford to spend to acquire a customer, is what the front end value is and what the back end value is. Right.
Yeah,
so, and
sense,
what
yeah.
the back end value is, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to spend, if a customer is worth $275 and I'm at level 3, I'm willing to spend part of that $275. And if that average customer is worth $2,000 to me on the back end, maybe I'm willing to spend another $500 out of that. I'm willing to use my back end, my lifetime, my future value to subsidize the cost of acquiring that asset. It's a different mindset. It's thinking like an investor and recognizing that, right, that there's There's massive leverage in that. When you do not look at your business transactionally, when you do not look at your marketing transactionally, when you recognize that there's the front end, which is all about maximum customer acquisition, and there's the back end, which is where all the profit comes from. And the bigger the profit on the back end, the more you should be willing to spend to acquire that asset.
Yeah, and level 3, I guess people kind of wonder, well, how do you get to knowing the lifetime value? But I'll tell you, like with my client in the financial space, I can look at spreadsheets that track back for several years and through lots and lots and lots of transactions, and the numbers become very predictable if you're tracking them. So we know how much a lead is worth. If we're just purely generating leads because we'll buy leads, we know how long those will take to turn over, and but it's being very dedicated to accurate tracking. So.
But like you said, and you're absolutely spot on. We've got, we use a variety of different tools and software and apps and spreadsheets to monitor all of our metrics. But it goes back to what we said at the very beginning of our time together today, and that is this business is all about psychology, communication, and arithmetic. And in order to be able to make those decisions, those mathematical decisions, you need to have the numbers. In order to have the numbers, you need to track. If you don't have the numbers, if you're not tracking and you don't have the numbers, I don't know how anybody could make an intelligent decision in this business on what should I be spending to get traffic? What is that traffic work? Can I spend more? Should I spend less? You have no way of making those decisions. You're really just throwing a dart in the dark. When you have the numbers, it's very easy because you no longer have to scratch your head and wonder. You can look and you could see, wow, a new customer is worth $250 to us right now. We're only spending $125. Let's spend more. Let's spend more to acquire a customer. And just to kind of put a bow on this whole discussion and illustration, I just want everybody
before you put the bow on it, can I relate everything you said to a real world example? And this will be interesting.
Sure.
MFA, right? You guys have faculty, staff. You fill up live events. You're an author now, man. You've got a book out. But at one point, you were just a guy with an info product, and that's where so many people are in this space. They've got an info product. It's starting to sell. They're at level 1. But before we put that bow on it, can you tell us how you did this with MFA? And you kind of came into it with an advantage. You've got years of working behind some of the biggest funnels out there, multi-million-dollar funnels. So when you were the guy with the info product, you had the advantage of knowing what you're now teaching your E5 students. I was an E5 student, but I would just call it having the ability to not just have a marketing funnel that makes you a little bit of money. You call them, game-changing home run campaigns. When you look at a marketing funnel, you're looking at building a funnel that can spin up a 8-figure business, really seemingly out of nowhere. So can you just walk us through kind of your experience in doing that with MFA back to when you were just a guy with an info product? You don't have to spend a long time, but like your mentality on that, because a couple of things that you kind of blew my mind with a while back. I think your product was like $500. Yeah. And then at that time, it sounded like, wow, you're breaking even on $500. It just sounded so big. And then you told me too that on one of your other programs that sells for $2,000, you're like, that could also be just because it's a higher ticket doesn't mean it's not front end. So like those things kind of like messed with my mind a little bit and changed my whole perception. I'm like, whoa, you'd be willing to break even on a $2,000 product, but all for the sake of, you're not in it just to make a little money today, tomorrow, and pay the bills next month. You're using this leverage to spin up a huge business.
Yeah. So I'll do one better than talking about MFA because, right, so I've been in the direct response, world for, 15 plus, 16 plus years now at this point. And so, I had, a lot of time and experience under my belt when I launched MFA. But I'll go back to when I first launched my very first information product many moons ago. No connections, no email list. I started my business with $850. That was it. And it's a very simple process. If I was starting over again, I'll share with your folks exactly what I would do. So number one, when you've got one information product, when you've got a product, first of all, it's important to recognize that a single product doesn't make a business, right? A product is just that. It's a product. And so when you've when you have one product, you have to operate at level 1, unless you're working a full-time job, right? So when I first started my business, I was working a full-time job, and I kept my full-time job for 2 years until I went full-time in the business. What that allowed me to do was it did allow me to spend more to acquire a customer, right? Because I didn't have to take profit out, because I didn't have to draw money out of the business. But if I was full-time, if I did launch my business, I didn't have a job, let's say, and I had a single information product, well, initially you have to operate at level 1. You have to take profit out, or you're not going to be making any bankable money. You're going to have, cash flow. You're going to have money out, money in, money out, money in, and there's going to be no profit left over. The only time I would move to level 2 is when I introduced my first back end product. Meaning when I created my first product to offer to customers who bought the first product, well, then you have the ability to spend a little more on the front end, because you know that a certain percentage of your customers are going to buy the back end. And as you add to the back end, as you add a second product or a third product, a continuity program, a live event, an academy, if you're in the information business, all of those things, as your back end pool of offers grow, well, then what that means is that the average value of a customer is going to grow. So when you have one product and you're selling that product for $100, right? You have an average customer value, an average lifetime value of $100 at that point, because that's all you can sell them. You got one product, it's $100. That means that the average customer is worth $100 to you. That's today and for right now in the foreseeable future, because that's the only thing that you have to sell to them. When you add in another product, let's say you add in a back-end product, and let's say that product's also $100. Well, maybe you know that 20% of your customers are going to take advantage of that back-end product. That means that, right, out of that's $20 of value that now gets added. Now, instead of a customer being worth only $100 to you, now because you added in a back end, the average customer is worth $120 to you. Right? And so now you can afford to spend a little bit more money on the front. You add in another product that's $500, and maybe 10% of your customers take advantage of that. That adds another $50 of value. Now your average customer is worth $170 to you. So now you can afford to spend a little bit more. And as you grow out that back end, and you're increasing the value of a customer, right, as you're rolling out bigger and more products on the back end, more and more offers on the back end, whether they're your own or affiliates or partnerships, strategic alliances. Now you can afford to spend more on the front. And then eventually you get to a point where, okay, wow, you look at what an average customer is worth, and you say to yourself, wow, the average customer is worth $3,500 to us. So now how much are we willing to spend to acquire a customer? When you said earlier that you said, I might have a $2,000 product and I'm willing to break even on that. I'm willing to spend $2,000 to get a single buyer of that $2,000 program, right? Well, why would I be willing to do that? Well, I'd be willing to do that if I knew that the average customer was worth $3,500. Right, to me, that means that I spend $2,000 and I really profit $1,500 in the foreseeable future. And so the question, when I said I was going to put a bow on this, the question is this. Remember when I said earlier, how many of your people would, if I said, give me $10 right now, in an hour, I'll give you $10 back, and then in a month, I'll give you another 10. Well, operating at level 3 is like saying this. How many of you would give me $10 today if I gave you $6 back right now, and then in 30 days I gave you another 12, let's just say, right? Well, of course,
yeah. I'd be emptying out my bank account, what I could afford. I'd be going to relatives, borrowing
money.
The
only thing that you would need to know, right? The only thing that you would need to know is, do I have the cash to be able to? If I said to you, would you do that? The answer would be yes. The second question would be, well, how often do you want to do that? The answer would have to stem from how much cash do you have to be able to do that? Because if you could give me 10 and I give you back 6, that means you're negative 4, but in 30 days I give you back 12, right? Meaning that you're then up $8. Every time we do that exchange, you go out of pocket by $4, but 30 days later you get 12 back, yeah. Right? So you got a pocket by 4, 30 days later you get 12 back. That's an investor, right? That's an investor. As long as you know what you're going to get in the future, lifetime value, future customer value, and when that money is going to come back, and you have the money to do it, that's a great proposition. Somebody that's got, somebody that's got a lot of cash on hand, a business with a lot of cash flow would do that all day long, every day.
Yeah.
Right? So
how much cash can you float, basically?
Yeah, how much cash can you float? If you said, if that same entrepreneur said, I'm gonna wait until somebody, I'm gonna wait until I find somebody that I give them 10 and they give me back 12 right now, right? You're gonna be waiting a long time. You have a much smaller pool of people to choose from, right? And so I would do that all day long, knowing that, but it's all because we have the cash flow and we know what the future value of that customer is. And when when you're able to do that, which this is exactly how the biggest, fastest growing companies operate. A company like Agora, for example, as a whole, on average, they don't get to break even for, call it 6 months, meaning that they lay out money and they don't get to break even on the acquisition of that customer for 6 months. Now, most of your folks can't do that, shouldn't do that. Most of your folks should operate at level 2 and stay there. You could build a monster business at level 2 for a very, very long time without having to go to level 3. It's a mindset shift. Recognize the front end is just about customer acquisition. The back end is where all the profit is in this business.
In your experience, would you even say at level 2, 8 figures? You have,
sure.
Yeah. Students and clients who've done.
Sure, absolutely. I built the back of MFA off of a single funnel for almost 18 months. That was, break even on the front. I built the back of MFA, just one funnel that we were just every day. It was just turning traffic, bringing traffic in, pumping out sales, pumping out sales.
Yeah, and that's interesting how you were positioned to do that. You used that funnel as a workhorse and you built up, a real company. And I hope this really is a mindset shift for people out there who, they've got the front end, say they've got the front end course, that they're starting to get out to cold traffic, and maybe they've got a paid coaching program. Like, let's say they've got a $2,500 or $4,000 coaching program, because when you're talking about back end 2, it may not be something, elaborate that takes you years to build. It could just be that you start a coaching program that gives people more access to you. So I talk to a lot of people, they have that as a back end, so they could look at, the course as the front end model and fill up that coaching program or their consulting program or whatever it may be. Yeah,
absolutely. No, you're spot on, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. Well, I think we've covered it. We don't want to go on forever, but that's game-changing information. I remember when I learned this from you, and it was definitely, the red pill moment in the Matrix. So it's awesome stuff, man. I appreciate you coming on here, and congratulations on all the awesome things you're doing, man.
You too, man. You're doing some great work and great stuff. I'm super proud of you, man. I love watching you shine and helping people, changing the world, man. And so it was my pleasure today.
All right, Todd. Thank you so much.
You got it.